3 spine-chilling true horror stories, the sinister secrets exposed on the last day of school. The final bell rang, echoing through the halls like a death knell. Freedom. But for Megan, a 15-year-old with a lively imagination, that exhilaration quickly turned sour when she realized her phone was missing. Panic gripped her chest like a vice. The vibrant world of Maplewood shifted. Bright lawns and sunlit streets seemed darker, as if shadows were stretching themselves to snatch her back. "Let us go back," she urged, pulling her friends, Tyler and Clara, toward the school doors. Their laughter faded, swallowed by the now eerily silent building. The familiar hallways felt like a labyrinth of nightmares. That sense of comfort was gone. As they searched, dread seeped into their bones. Just as they were about to give up, Megan's gaze landed on a half-hidden door. It was strange, inconspicuous, like it was there to keep secrets. "Guys, check this out," she said, her fingers trembling as she pushed it open. The hinges creaked, sounding like a warning. A dark staircase spiraled down. Despite the cold fear curling in her stomach, curiosity tugged her closer. The pull was irresistible, each step down feeling like a step into a deeper void. Clara and Tyler hesitated but followed, the air growing thick with tension. The basement was a haunting tableau of forgotten memories. Shadows clung to the walls, an unsettling museum of lost hopes. Megan's skin crawled as she spotted torn photographs, images of past students wreathed in mystery and tragedy, abandoned books whispering stories long forgotten. And then came the voices, a low murmur that seemed to echo through time. They were almost recognizable, weaving tales of strange happenings and a teacher who vanished. Suddenly, chilling cold enveloped them, making Megan shiver. Her pulse quickened. "Do you hear that?" she whispered. In the silence, the whispers grew clearer, more urgent. "Trust no one" floated around her like fog, thickening in the air. Terror gripped her heart. What were they inviting into their lives? As dusk fell over Maplewood, the comforting embrace of their little town felt suffocated by shadows. They stumbled outside, disoriented. Then, the hushed tones of 2 teachers reached them. "Mr. Harmon." The abductions, their words, stained with urgency, pierced through their fragmented world. A coach they idolized now cloaked in suspicion. Megan looked at her friends. A wave of uncertainty washed over them, doubts metastasizing in their once secure friendship. A creeping dread settled in. The familiar street now loomed before them like a treacherous maze. Whispers clawed at the edges of their minds. The closer they got to home, the more insidious the darkness felt, stretching its grip over them. Panic gripped Megan as they ran. The thrill of freedom turned into a terrifying chase. A shadow darted just out of sight, setting her heart racing. Was something following them? She turned, adrenaline pumping, every crack of a branch or rustle of leaves igniting a raw sense of horror. "Guys, let us hurry," she urged. But as they sprinted through their neighborhood, that horrific chill hit her again. Something, was trailing right behind. Then, it happened. Something cold seized her ankle. A hand? No. It yanked her back, pulling her into the murk of shadows. The scream caught in her throat. "Help me!" The lingering echoes of the vanished teacher rang in her ears, words twisting and turning. "Trust no one." Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Cold fingers of terror wrapped around her throat. Megan's heart raced, the buzzing in her ears deafening. Tyler and Clara shouted her name. The basement, the whispers, it all connected somehow. A wave of fear crashed over her as the darkness around them began to pulse like a heart, revealing a grotesque truth. What awaited them in the shadows was far worse than they could ever imagine. Megan struggled against the grip that held her like iron. Her vision narrowed to a tunnel, the world around her spiraling out of focus. Tyler and Clara's frantic voices felt distant, muted by the suffocating darkness that clung to her like a second skin. "Let go of her!" Tyler screamed, rage and fear lacing every syllable. Megan felt the sensation of icy fingers burn into her skin, pulling her deeper into the shadows. She writhed, gasping, the murmur of dark whispers transforming into a chant. Unintelligible words pressed against her mind, thick with urgency and abandonment. Something beyond any sense of normalcy lurked here, and it was hungry. With a sudden surge, Tyler lunged forward, his hands gripping Megan's shoulders, battling against the unseen force. "I won't let you take her," he shouted. The tension electrified the air as he pulled with all his strength. She could feel the connection tethering them. The whispers crackled like broken glass. In a desperate instant, the grip released, and Megan fell hard onto the unforgiving floor. The shadows shrank back, as if recoiling from light itself. Tyler and Clara immediately surrounded her, panic and concern flickering in their eyes. It felt like a nightmare had come alive, yet they were somehow still here, united against the encroaching terror. "Are you okay?" Clara knelt beside her, urgency in her voice, but all Megan could do was nod. The reality of what just happened clawed at her insides. They needed to get out. Now, they scrambled towards the nearest exit, but the basement was throbbing, alive as darkness pulsed with an ominous energy. Just as they reached the door, it slammed shut, jolting them back. A creepy laugh echoed off the walls, chilling them to their cores. "Leave while you still can." A voice hissed, low and brimming with malice. It was there, all around them, emanating from the very shadows they feared. "What do you want?" Tyler shouted into the darkness, his bravado wavering. "Your friends are in danger," the voice taunted. "Do you trust each other? Or do you dare to face the truth?" Megan's heart sank. The last whispers she'd heard echoed back, "Trust no one, forget this." Clara yelled, rushing to the window, slamming her hands against the glass. "Help me." "It's no use," Megan warned, feeling a sense of dread wash over her. "We can't break the glass. It feels like it's alive." "Then how do we get out?" Tyler asked, desperation lacing his voice. The walls seemed to shift, compressing around them, shadows darkened and the air felt thicker, as though suffocating them. The door rattled violently, then within the chaos, it creaked open. A chilling breeze swept past them, leaving a chilling silence that stung on their skin. "Go!" urged Megan, snapping out of her freeze. It was now or never. They dashed through the doorway, plunging into the eerie corridor that led them back to the gym, now repurposed into something sinister. Glaring lights flickered, revealing a jumble of discarded trophies and broken desks. As they emerged into the larger space, an unsettling tableau greeted them. Figures moved in shadows, masked and cloaked in dark fabric, their eyes glowing with intent. It was like stepping into a warped version of a high school reunion, each figure a fragment of twisted memory. "Who are you?" Clara stammered. "What do you want from us?" The figures shifted, blurring between recognition and nightmare, and one stepped forward, its face obscured by a featureless mask, raising an arm slow and deliberate. "Enlightenment comes with a price," it whispered, voice like rusted metal scraping against stone. And with that, a light bulb flickered and went out, plunging them back into darkness, where the truth awaited, a truth that might tear their friendship apart. Megan could feel the weight of the question throbbing in the air. Thick and heavy, would they be able to trust each other when the darkness revealed its brutal secrets? The silence crashed down around them like a heavy fog, thick and unsettling. Every breath felt like a struggle, their hearts pounding in sync, echoing in the void. Shadows shifted as if alive, curling and twisting with a mind of their own. Megan was hyper-aware of the way the darkness seemed to pulse, a heartbeat of its own, impatient and hungry. Where did they go? Tyler's voice quivered. He stepped forward, straining to see through the oppressive blackness. A flicker of movement caught his eye, and he turned sharply. "Did you see that? Just stay close to me," Clara pleaded, gripping Megan's arm so tightly it almost hurt. Megan felt the ice in Clara's voice, the weight of fear clawing at them, threatening to pull them under. "Trust no one," the disembodied voice echoed once more, taunting them while lingering like a suffocating mist. "Stop it!" Tyler shouted, his frustration spilling over into panic. "We need to figure out a plan." Or suddenly, the lights flickered back on, revealing a scene that felt like a twisted dream. The gym was transformed. Desks and chairs now formed an intricate maze, each moving against the other, as if guided by unseen hands. The masked figures were still there, their presence an unsettling reminder of their previous declaration. "Enlightenment?" Megan whispered. "What does that even mean?" One figure stepped closer, its masked head tilting almost as if pondering her question. "To understand the truth, you must confront your fears. Each of you carries a secret." Megan's stomach twisted. Secrets hung in the air like damp fog, threatening to choke the life out of her. What could they be? What had she hidden, suffocated beneath layers of denial? "Your trust in one another is the only key to escape," the figure continued, voice dripping with menace. "But a cost will be exacted, a sacrifice must be made. Will you betray each other to survive?" "No, no way," Tyler shook his head fiercely. "I won't hurt either of you." The figure laughed softly, a sound that slithered through the air. "Then you may be doomed, child. The darkness feeds on your doubt." With a guttural roar, the lights flickered again, plunging them into darkness. Megan could feel the walls closing in, a trap waiting to spring. She glanced at Tyler and Clara, their faces taut with fear. Would they break under pressure? The chances of betrayal loomed on the horizon, an ugly specter ready to unravel their friendship. Then, a sudden thud jolted them. Out of the darkness came an explosion of whispers, their meaning blurred but the tone unwavering accusations, doubts, every possible insecurity clawing its way to the surface. "Do you remember the time?" One voice spat, sharp and cold. "Do you remember what you said?" Megan's heart raced. Was it true? Did they remember? She couldn't bring herself to answer. The shadows pulsed, pressing in tighter as if sensing their hesitation. "Run!" Clara screamed, breaking the spell, and they fled through the maze, desperately weaving between the twisted furniture, their breaths mingling into an air of shared terror. But the deeper they ran, the more distorted their surroundings became, like a funhouse mirror reflecting fears they had long buried. The shadows grew denser, pushing them apart. Megan stumbled, nearly falling to the ground. "Tyler! Clara!" she cried, her voice swallowed by the chaos around her. Panic seized her as she looked back. Darkness had wrapped around them tightly, threatening to sever her connection to the only allies she had left. Just then, a flash of light illuminated something in the corridor ahead. A door, slightly ajar, beckoned to her like a siren song. But was it a way out or a trap? With trembling hands, she raced forward, heart pounding, just praying they were nearby, hoping they hadn't been lost to the shadows. Would she dare cross that threshold, or was the door merely leading her deeper into the unfathomable truth? As she reached for the handle, it jerked violently, almost as if the darkness itself were alive and resisting her touch. Megan's hand froze just inches from the handle. The thrumming darkness around her pulsed like a living thing, as if it could sense her hesitation. Shadows twisted and contorted, beckoning her deeper into dread. "Clara! Tyler!" She shouted again, but her voice felt thin, desperate. The silence that answered felt louder than any scream. Swallowing hard, she jerked the door open with a burst of adrenaline. It swung wide, revealing a narrow hallway, dimly lit but eerily calm. The air was heavy, reeking of musty wood and something more sinister, fear itself. Megan stepped inside, her pulse racing. Hesitation gnawed at her, but there was no going back. She had to take the chance. The door slammed shut behind her with a deafening crash that rattled the walls. She spun, heart racing, but it didn't budge. She was trapped. Breath unsteady, she turned back to face the hall. The walls were lined with mirrors, each one reflecting not just her image but a twisted, grotesque version of herself. In one, she looked haunted, eyes wide with terror. Another showed her in a cruel shadow, grinning eerily while she stood frozen. "Stop it!" she shouted at her reflections, shattering the silence. Just then, she heard it. A faint whisper, something distant yet unmistakably close. "Help me!" The voice sent chills down her spine. It was Clara's voice. Megan surged forward, propelled by fear and desperation. Each step felt like wading through cold molasses. "Clara! Where are you?" she called, but the shadows danced along the mirrors, warping her voice. The whispers grew louder, echoing her name, but mixed within was Tyler's, a blend of fear and anger. "You shouldn't have to choose." Megan's heart dropped. "Choose what?" The darkness twisted around her, cloaking her in an unsettling embrace, pushing her toward a reflection that looked increasingly familiar. That mirror. It wasn't just her, it was a glimpse into the truth buried beneath. Secrets surfaced in the haze like ghosts breaking the surface of a stagnant pond. The reflective Megan grinned widely, eyes glinting with malicious delight. "They will betray you, you know," it hissed, voice layered with mockery. "You're the one they want to get rid of." "No, it's not true." Tears pricked the corners of Megan's eyes. "We're friends." "Friends? Or sacrifices?" It leaned closer, and she could see the darkness swirl in its eyes. Suddenly, something behind her stirred. She spun, dread seeping into her bones. Above her, a dark figure loomed, faceless yet suffocatingly present. A wave of cold washed over her, making her shiver. Megan turned back to the mirror. "What do you want from me?" "Your fear, your doubt, your friend's secret, sacrifice one to save another." Each beat of her heart echoed a choice she didn't want to make. She needed Clara and Tyler. They needed each other. But the idea of betrayal lurked in the shadows, like a monster waiting to pounce. Suddenly, the ground shook beneath her feet. It was as if the gym itself were alive, responding to her turmoil. Megan stumbled, her thoughts wild. The hall twisted between reality and illusion. Time felt distorted. The whispers merged into a cacophony of noise, echoing doubts and frustrations, bubbling to the surface. "Choose. Choose." The voices chanted, drowning her sanity. She pressed her palms against the cold mirror, its surface undulating under her touch. Desperation gnawed at her. Was this really a choice? They could all perish if she didn't act. "What do I do?" she screamed, the sound ripping through the air. In the distance, a soft, anguished cry echoed. It was Clara. Megan's heart lurched. Without thinking, she tore away from the mirror, racing toward the screams. She had to get to Clara. The hallway warped, the walls closing in, but her determination kept her moving forward. Just as she reached the door at the end, it swung open, revealing Clara's trembling figure. But the room beyond was flooded in darkness, the shadows thick with malevolence, pulsing like a beast waiting to devour them whole. "Quickly! We need to go!" Megan yelled, but Clara remained frozen, her eyes wide with fear. "Wait, what if it's a trick? Trust me. Please." Megan pleaded, but as Clara hesitated, doubt flooded Megan's mind anew. Would trusting her now cost them everything? Just then, a figure appeared behind Clara, a masked shadow, grinning with dark amusement. "Sacrifice or trust?" it echoed, eyes glimmering with malice. The choice loomed over them like a storm. Would trust prevail, or would shadows swallow them whole? As Megan grabbed Clara's arm, ready to run, the shadows began to close in. But somewhere in that dark labyrinth, Tyler was waiting. Would they be together again or would the night consume them? How far would Megan go to save them both? The clock was ticking and time was running out. Megan pulled Clara away from the doorway. The shadows screamed around them, alive and writhing like snakes eager to strike. Every instinct told her to run, but the looming figure behind Clara held an irresistible sway. Its eyes glinted with a hunger that made Megan's stomach drop. "Clara, please move." The words came out as a desperate plea, yet Clara remained motionless. The figure began to whisper softly, promises laced with deceit. "What if she betrayed you?" It swirled in the shadows, weaving doubt into Clara's mind. "What if she is the reason you're trapped here?" Clara's face twisted in uncertainty. You heard it too, right? The whispers? Focus on me. They're lying." Megan shouted, shaking Clara's shoulders. Suddenly, the creature lunged forward, its fingers clawing through the air. Clara screamed, tearing her gaze from the creature. That moment of distraction was enough. Megan yanked Clara, their feet pounding against the floor as they bolted down the hallway, but the shadows were relentless, the walls seemed to close in, stretching like a malignant maw. Dark tendrils snaked around Megan's ankles, pulling her down. Her heart raced as she fought against the cold grasp, frantic determination surging through her veins. "Keep moving!" she shrieked. Clara stumbled behind her, breathless. "Where do we go? It's all wrong. The hallways are shifting." Megan glanced back, catching fleeting glimpses of the figure, its grin reflected in every surface. "It's following us. We can't let it trap us." They approached another mirror, larger this time, framing their frightened reflections like a twisted canvas. The image rippled, distorting reality. Behind them, the monstrous shadow flickered, its form indistinguishable from the darkness. Clara shrieked again. "Step away from that!" Megan shouted, feeling the mirror calling to her a wrong, monstrous call. "Look! It's showing us." Clara pointed, gasping. In the reflection, Megan saw more than her own panic, blurry images of Tyler fighting against his own shadow, clawing desperately for freedom. "They're trapped too!" Clara cried, her voice thick with dread. "No! We have to keep going." Just as Megan turned to lead Clara away, a force pushed against her chest, staggering her back against the mirror. Her breath hitched as the glass rippled violently, faces emerging from the ether, a gaunt Tyler among them, his lips moving in silent horror. "Choose." The shadow growled, its voice filling the air with a chilling finality. "One must fall. One must be sacrificed." "No!" Megan shouted defiantly. "I want tea." The shadows clawed at her resolve. Cold hard fear gripped her heart. Who would she save? Clara's terrified gasp tightened her throat. "Tyler," she muttered, torn as the darkness tightened its grip. The mirror glowed, flickering images flashing faster, revealing slices of their past moments of laughter, betrayal, and truth. Each scene pulsed with torment, and as she blinked, the terror grew heavier. "Megan!" Clara shouted, panic seeping into her voice. "What are we going to do? We can't lose anyone." The mirror seeped darkness, thick like smoke, wrapping around them. "Choose, choose." The whispers echoed, rising in a dreadful crescendo. Megan recoiled but felt a horrifying clarity settle in her mind. "I can't let anyone die." But as the realization crashed over her, she felt the choice like pressure beneath her skin. Clara or Tyler? The weight of the decision was a boulder pressing down, tightening around her throat. "Get ready," Megan urged, her heart pounding. Their escape depended on speed and will. They darted away from the mirror, fueled by desperation. Shadows chased after them, a relentless tide drawing closer, but just as hope flickered, the lights above flickered in response, casting eerie shapes along the walls. "I can't," Clara started, her voice trailing off as they reached a stark end, a door sealed tight with russet locks, as if the gym itself had closed its heart to them. "Please. Open." Megan screamed, throwing her weight against it, but it wouldn't budge. Behind them, the figure surged forward, laughing a sound that froze her to the marrow. "Will you save your friend?" the shadow rasped, inching closer. "Or will you let them perish?" Megan's mind raced. The clock ticked down. Would she let the shadows take them both? The final moment approached with a surge of courage. She pulled Clara close. "Whatever happens, we face this together," she vowed, heart pounding. As the door rattled against the impending doom, she realized one dreadful truth: true sacrifice demanded more than just fear. Would they find strength in unity, or would betrayal tear them apart? The darkness dropped like a curtain, raising more questions than answers. Megan's breath came in quick, shallow bursts as despair settled like an iron weight around her chest. The pressure mounted. The figure behind them slinked closer, a grotesque puppeteer pulling the strings of their fear. "Why won't it let us through?" Clara whimpered, her voice barely a whisper, laced with the bitter taste of hopelessness. Megan pressed her shoulder against the door, feeling the cold metal latch beneath her fingers. "There has to be a way. Try to break it down." She rapped on the wood forcefully, a cowardly part of her hoping that the door would simply yield. Hope was a fragile thing, and with each failed attempt, she could feel it splintering. The darkness crept further, whispers intertwining with the beats of her heart. "Choose," it echoed, resonating from the twisted hallways behind them. "Focus on my voice," Megan pleaded, clenching her eyes shut for just a moment. "Think of the way out. Think about Tyler." The thought of him trapped in that nightmare twisted in her gut, an insatiable fear that gnawed at her resolve. Tyler. Clara's voice dipped with longing. "What if he's—" "Stop. Don't you say it." Megan snapped, her frustration boiling over. The doubt it sowed was another tendril of the darkness. "We need to find a way." Clara paced back and forth, panic flickering like a failing light. The clamor of their footfalls filled the cramped hall, each thud echoing their desperation. The looming figure pushed forward, melding with the shadows, its grin widening. "Time is running out. Keep going," Megan urged, forcing Clara forward. Night rushed at them from all sides, an unseen predator drawing near. Suddenly, the door rattled violently as though something pushed against it from the other side. Clara stumbled back, hitting the wall with a thud. "Megan!" A dark chill crept through the air, thick and suffocating. For a split second, Megan's resolve shook. She thought of her parents, of her room, even of the silly little things that used to make her smile. In the face of this fear, they felt like distant memories. "Please!" she screamed, the finality hitting her like a punch to the gut. "You can't have us." The figure hissed a low, rumbling laugh, dragging itself closer, an entity that thrived on the fear that spun between them like a web. "Will you forsake your friend?" it taunted, its voice a slithering whisper that echoed with cruel laughter. "Betray your loyalty. It is the only way to survive." "No!" Megan cried, rage boiling in her veins. "We won't give in. We will survive together." With newfound strength, she lunged at the door, striking it repeatedly now, the chill in her bones igniting a fire in her desperation. Each blow was a defiance against the darkness that clung to her like tar, and then, a crack echoed through the air, the sound of splintering wood. Megan froze, heart thudding in her chest as a slant of light breached through the door's contours. The figure recoiled, shadows snapping like elastic against bright illumination. "It's afraid," Clara shouted. "We can break through. Keep hitting it." They struck the door together, blows synchronizing as their fear morphed into a rallying call. The darkness shrieked, writhing back, the creature's laughter turning to a furious roar, but just as the light spilled into the abyss, a hand reached from the void. The shadow was still there, ready to snatch them away. It lunged for Clara, claws outstretched, eager to steal her light. Megan instinctively pushed Clara out of the way, feeling icy fingertips graze her arm. "No!" she shouted, even as a shriek swallowed her voice whole. Then a blinding light erupted as Megan felt the door give way beneath their collective weight, a portal opening to uncertainty, the shadows flailing in growing panic. "Jump!" Clara screamed. They leapt through the door, hearts racing with dread and desperation, plunging into the unknown just as the darkness screamed its last cacophony of rage behind them. But as they landed, breathless, on the other side, the world around them shifted. Everything felt wrong. Silence blanketed the air like a shroud, thick with anguish. Megan blinked, trying to register her surroundings as misgivings gnawed at her mind. Where were they now? Had they escaped or simply entered another layer of horror? And then she remembered, the choice, the sacrifice. "Clara," Megan whispered, fear creeping in, what if we just swapped places with that darkness?" The gravity of her words hung like a noose. Clara's eyes widened, the light from the doorway fading behind them. What had they really escaped? As shadows began to swirl again at their heels, despair tightened its grip. The darkness had not been vanquished, it was merely waiting for a new chance to strike. The air felt stale and stagnant around them, heavy as if it bore witness to their fear. Megan squinted at the dim light, where silhouettes danced like twisted figures in glass. The walls, smeared with what looked like streaks of darkness, glimmered faintly under an unnatural glow that both beckoned and warned. "Where are we?" Clara's voice quaked, shattering the lingering silence. Her eyes darted, scanning their surroundings as if the mere act of observing would reveal the truth. I don't know," Megan stammered, taking a cautious step forward. Each footfall sounded unnaturally loud, a reminder of their presence in this nightmarish place. "It feels like a trap." Before she could finish her thought, the shadows gathered hurriedly, swirling towards them with an intent that made her heart race. The air grew colder, an unsettling chill that wrapped around them like a shroud. "Stay close," Megan whispered sharply, instinctively reaching for Clara's hand. But the moment their fingers intertwined, a flash of cold swept through her arm, shock igniting a panic rising in her throat. A sudden scratching sound echoed from somewhere nearby, an eerie, relentless scraping like nails against wood. Clara tightened her grip, her eyes wide, and Megan could see the flicker of terror reflected back at her. "What was that?" Clara whimpered, the words spilling out as if begging for an answer that they both feared. Just stay quiet," Megan replied, her voice barely above a whisper. They pressed against the wall, moving cautiously as more scraping erupted, sounding now like a chant echoing through the corridor, a sinister harmony of despair. "What if it comes for us?" Clara's voice trembled, fear oozing from her every word. Megan could feel her own heart thumping viciously, a drumbeat of dread. It was a stark reminder of everything they had faced. "We gotta find a way out. We have to keep moving." The shadows seemed to respond, coiling tighter, a menacing mass that crept towards them. As they maneuvered deeper into the playing field of darkness, a faint flicker of light appeared ahead. It was feeble, pulsing, but it offered something, a potential escape. "Over there." Clara pointed, hope mingling with terror. With each step, the flickering light grew brighter, revealing twisted shapes along the walls, faces stretched in anguish, mouths open in silent screams, and eyes wide with despair. It was a gallery of souls, trapped and tortured within the very shadows that haunted them. Megan's insides churned. "They're not real," she insisted, trying to stoke her own courage. But the truth was undeniable, these were once people, now mere echoes of forgotten lives. "Just a little further," Clara urged, her voice gaining strength despite the horror surrounding them. Then, from the periphery, darkness lunged like a wave, swallowing the light, consuming everything in its path. "Megan!" Clara's voice tore through the chaos just as the light died. Megan felt a grip around her ankle, cold as ice, dragging her toward the mouth of the void. Panic surged, she clawed at the ground, her heart racing as if it could burst free. "No! Not like this!" she screamed, but the darkness roared in reply, a cacophony that drowned out her cries. She kicked frantically, desperation flooding her veins. With a sudden violent motion, she broke free, lurching toward Clara, who was now trapped between two shadowy forms, their mouths stretching wider, hungry and insatiable. "Clara, hold on." With a burst of fury, Megan lunged, yanking Clara away just before the shadows could claim her. They stumbled backward, breathless, dodging the grasping hands of their pursuers. Quick! They rushed towards what little light remained, only for a wall of darkness to rise before them, a solid barrier that pulsated with ominous life. Megan's mind raced. "Clara, we have to sacrifice," Clara whispered, her eyes glistening with tears. "One of us has to hold them back." "No!" Megan protested, enraged at the suggestion. "You can't. There must be another way." But Clara's face hardened with resolve, her strength unwavering. "We can't end up like them. They'll take us, Megan. I won't let it happen." As Clara prepared to step back into the shadow, Megan lunged forward, catching her wrist, fear coursing through her like a wildfire. "Please. There has to be another option." With a scream piercing the air, the shadows surged toward them, the barrier vibrating with their fury. Megan felt the cold tendrils wrap around her legs, their fingers tracing chilling lines up her back as the darkness demanded its due. "Make a choice." The darkness snarled, its voice a guttural hiss. The weight of despair threatened to crush them both, but then, in a swift moment, a thought sparked in Megan's mind. What if the light was not gone? What if they could harness it, bind it to their will against the vile creatures that sought to tear them apart? "Clara," Megan gasped, her breath hitching. What if we fight together?" Before Clara could respond, the darkness howled again, threatening to pull them into its suffocating embrace. Was it possible? Was it time to defy the darkness that had shadowed their lives? The figures lunged forward, eager to claim their prize, as the choice loomed a gamble against the malevolence that had haunted them. If they fought, what dark price would they have to pay for their freedom? As the shadows closed in, a sudden blast from Megan's memory flickered to life a fleeting image of Tyler, a spark that just might ignite their path forward. Together, they shouted in unison, tightening their grip, ready to plunge back into the darkness. But would it bring salvation or doom? Before they could find out, the world around them exploded into chaos, leaving them suspended between the light and the dark, the fate of their lives hanging by a thread. What awaited them on the other side? They were about to find out. The darkness erupted like a living beast, howling and roaring as it engulfed their bodies. Megan felt the cold fingers of terror sink deep into her skin, pricking every nerve with icy dread. The shadows pulsed around them, flickering in and out, transforming the world into a warped nightmare landscape. "Fight it!" she screamed, summoning every ounce of strength she could muster. Clara's grip was tight and warm, a beacon of hope in the suffocating void. "Focus on the light." The dim glow began to flicker weakly against the encroaching shadow. It felt like a fragile flame in a windstorm, but Megan held on, a desperate anchor against the overwhelming force threatening to swallow them whole. She forced herself to recall every moment of warmth and safety, from lazy summer days to laughter echoing down school hallways. The shadows hesitated, shuddering as if sensing the resistance brewing between the two girls. Clara's face was solemn, her determination emerging even more fiercely amid chaos. "Together. We can do this, Megan." Bound by fear yet fueled by hope, they wove their memories into a tangible thread. A sliver of white light sparked, brightening as it surged through their linked hands, illuminating the dreadful crawl of darkness. But the shadows were relentless, they clawed and twisted, a liquid mass of malice that sought to extinguish their flickering hope. "Keep going." Megan gasped, feeling the pressure against her chest swell ominously. Clara's breath hitched, they could both sense the shifting tides of the fight, but neither dared to waver. "Look!" Clara shouted, pointing to the swirling void. Amidst the chaos, tiny, indistinct figures scratched and pulled, faces twisted in sorrow. They were just like us. They wanted to escape. Suddenly, a bald, grotesque face emerged from the shadows, skin stretched taut over a grinning skull. It hovered close, the grotesque mouth opening wide, revealing rows of needle-like teeth that seemed to drip darkness. The air turned frigid, laced with despair as its hollow eyes locked onto Megan. "Join us," it hissed, the voice gnarly, echoing like a dark symphony beneath the chaos. "You'll become one of us forever." Megan's skin crawled, pushing her instincts into overdrive. "Never." She spat, throwing every ounce of her will against the malevolence surrounding them. "Clara. We have to make that light stronger." With a sudden surge of desperation, Megan recalled the warmth of every smile, every hug, every comforting whisper. The light burst forth, surrounding them like a protective bubble, defying the shadows that clawed to reclaim them, but the darkness recoiled, and with it came a thunderous rage. The grotesque faces morphed into layers of shadows, rising like a tidal wave, seeking to drown their fragile light. Megan felt her resolve waver, her heart pounding like a drum of impending doom. "Fight! It can't take us!" Clara shouted, her voice fierce and unwavering. With an echoing scream, they pulled together, pushing the light outward with all their combined strength. The barrier shimmered, vibrating with their fear and determination. As the shadows lashed against the glow, a knowing dread gripped Megan. What if it's not enough? She thought, the gnawing fear threading through her mind, alarming and persistent. "Remember Tyler," Clara urged, her voice bringing clarity through the chaos. The thought of him, his laughter, his friendship, ignited almost like a match striking against the darkness. The memories surged, flooding over her consciousness, pushing back against the suffocate weight of despair. Just as the darkness was closing in, reaching for their souls, they channeled that memory, harnessing it like fuel for a rising fire. Together, they cried out, together. The connection surged powerfully, and the light erupted, sheer brilliance cutting through the murky blackness. But before they could feel the succor of victory, an unbearable shriek exploded around them, raw and haunting. The darkness lunged again, launching waves of despair, almost as if sensing its doom. They barely held their ground. Megan's stomach twisted as an intense chill swept through her soul. Clara. She felt hollow, a deep echo of uncertainty coating her insides. "I think there's something worse than the darkness." "What do you mean?" Clara's eyes widened, dread and confusion twisting together. "It's still here. It's watching us." Just then, all light flickered out. An absolute darkness consumed them, and Megan's scream joined the cacophony of haunting whispers, open mouths struggling against the void. The shadows morphed again, laughing, a twisted symphony of terror. Whatever was lurking in that darkness had plans, and the girls were at the mercy of their twisted desires. What sinister truth awaited them as they were drawn further into the abyss, tangled in webs of darkness? In that moment, it became all too clear they had opened the door to a terror that offered no safe escape. Would they survive this horrifying choice, or had they unleashed something much worse? The real fight was just beginning. Megan and Clara stood frozen, their hearts syncopated with dread. They were swallowed entirely by a darkness that felt thick like fog, a living entity suffocating their hopes. It was stifling and suffocating, as if infinite despair was pressing against their lungs, forcing them to breathe in only shadows. "What now?" Clara's voice wobbled, betraying her fear. "We can't." Suddenly, an unearthly whisper danced through the black, a voice coarse and unrelenting. "You think you can escape?" It mirrored their own terror and twisted it into something feasting on their fear. "You think light protects you?" Panic clutched at Megan's throat. "Keep fighting. Remember Tyler." But even whilst she cried his name, doubt slithered into her heart, twisting it with despair. Was he even safe? What if he had succumbed to the same fate as the other lost souls lurking within the shadows? A cold laughter echoed, chilling her blood. "He belongs to us now, along with all the others." The shadows flickered, and for a second, she saw distorted faces pressed against the void. eyes wide in horror, mouth stretched in silent screams. Clara. It was all Megan could say before she felt the shadows ripple beneath her feet, shifting like a living ocean. They were no longer standing on solid ground, but rather on something slippery, pulsating, alive. With a sudden jerk, they were pulled apart, their hands breaking free from one another. No! Megan shrieked, desperation coursing through her veins. But the darkness surged, claiming Clara. It was dragging her away, a vine of shadows looping cruelly around her ankle. Clara's scream ripped through the air, raw and primal. Megan! Help! Her panic was palpable, threading itself tight around Megan's heart. Megan lunged forward, digging her fingers into the ground, trying to hold on to something real amidst a landscape that twisted and writhed. Clara! Hold on! I'm coming! The shadows clawed at her, but she pushed against their cold grasp, fueled by sheer will. Suddenly, a burst of warmth radiated from deep within her, ignited by the memories of laughter and friendship. You won. Take her! She screamed, channeling every bit of heart and spirit she had left into that warmth. With a deafening roar, the darkness recoiled, but it wasn't done yet. Flashes of light erupted, revealing nightmarish glimpses of what lay within, elongated limbs, gnarled faces, and eyes that stared with an ancient hunger. Megan! Clara's voice fell into a pit of hopelessness, begging for release. It wants us to fight, but what if that's what it wants? The shadows began to formulate into a more tangible shape, one of the sinister figures looming above them, its smile too wide, eyes like empty voids. Choose, it whispered, silky smooth yet laced with malice. Choose one to save, and the other will be ours forever. Clara, no. We can't. Megan felt her stomach twist in knots. Don't make that choice. Terror set fire to her limbs. Could saving Clara mean sacrificing herself? Would they be strong enough to fight together, or was the darkness cleverer than they ever imagined? Then Clara's face shifted, molded in agony and fear, lost between acceptance and fight. Megan, whatever else she was going to say was drowned in the howling wind of the abyss. No! The scream tore from Megan's throat as she lunged. But the figure took a step back, fading deeper into shadows, revealing more grotesque forms emerging from the darkening void. What was real? What was an illusion? Just then, a ray of blinding light sliced through the darkness, illuminating the surrounding chaos. For one fleeting moment, Megan could see her friend, but Clara was engulfed by a wave of dread just as the light flickered and threatened to vanish. Clara! The agony in her chest expanded, squeezing the reality around her like a vice. The choice had come, unbidden and unrelenting. Would they follow the call of the shadows or find a way to rescue one another before the choice fell upon them? As darkness roared and the light shimmered, everything slipped away into silence, and in that stillness, something far worse than the darkness began to reveal itself. Megan gasped as the silence around her roared back to life, wrapping her in an overwhelming tide of despair. With Clara's screams echoing in her mind, she felt the weight of the shadows pressing down tighter. No more running, this was the moment for truth. Clara! She shouted, her voice cutting through the darkness like a jagged edge. She sensed the shadows recoiling, hesitant around her fierce resolve, and she refused to be swept away. The whispered threat seemed to twist in the air, taunting her with betrayal, but Megan wouldn't let fear drown her spirit. I won. Choose. She declared, her voice a passionate roar against the swirling gloom. We'll find another way. Suddenly, the night began to tremble around her, the shadows vibrating as if hearing her defiance. She could feel Clara's panic clawing at her, but right next to that, an electric charge sparked a shared heartbeat of strength, indomitable between friends. A blinding flash erupted from deep within, illuminating their surroundings. Megan focused on the light, channeling every positive memory she shared with Clara and Tyler. Their laughter, their shared coffee breaks, summer days spent chasing the sun, the warmth coiled around her, and, suddenly, she felt Clara's presence urging her on. Together! Megan shouted, reaching into the pulsating chaos. She extended her hand toward the darkness, open and inviting the shadows to come. The malignant creatures hesitated, drawn by her courage, their smoky forms faltering before the light they feared. "Face us!" she cried defiantly, and in that moment of vulnerability, the shadows wavered. "Sacrifice is required," a dark voice hissed, whipping around her in a tempest. "Who will you save? Choose." "There is no choice without betrayal," Megan shouted back. "We will not play your sick game." And then, she felt a sudden tremor, a crack in the darkness as shadows began to peel away. The atmosphere shifted, everything swirling, until she could see Clara's silhouette amidst the chaos. "Hold on, Clara. I'm coming." Megan lunged forward, feeling the oppressive weight of the shadows ease just a fraction. With unyielding determination, she charged into the darkness, reaching for Clara who was caught in tendrils, fighting fiercely against the shadows that bound her. "Don't let them take you. Trust me." Clara nodded, eyes wide with hope. "Megan, please." In that moment, the bond they shared ignited with the fury of two souls rejecting the force that sought to tear them apart. Together, they surged forth, pushing against the sinister fingers of darkness until they found within them the light they desperately sought. Together, they shouted, and every echo of their strength sent a shock wave through the void. The shadows recoiled further, uncertainty dancing across their murky forms as bone-chilling howls filled the air. Suddenly, a path opened, a shimmering streak of brightness just ahead. It wrapped around them like a protective shield, guiding them toward freedom. The shadows screamed furiously, clawing to maintain their grip. "They won. Let us leave." Clara gasped, running alongside Megan, the remnants of the darkness nipping at their heels. "Their power feeds on fear. We must stay strong," Megan urged, their feet pounding against the ground, growing faster. Each stride felt like a defiance and affirmation they wouldn't yield. As they raced toward the bright opening, arms reaching, they felt the cold shadows begin to dissolve. Freedom beckoned just beyond the last veil of darkness. With one last push, they leapt through, the world exploding in incandescent light as they landed hard on solid ground. Gasping for breath, they found themselves back in the schoolyard, familiar yet eerie, where they began. The bell chimed overhead, fragile and beautiful against the newfound silence. "Are we?" Clara whispered, disbelief etched on her features. "Safe," Megan breathed, disbelief tinged with relief. The shadows were banished, fading like a bad dream into the folds of memory. In that moment of clarity, their friendship soared anew, forged through terror but unbreakable now. But the final whisper lingered in the depths of their minds. "Trust no one." As the school year ended, they stepped across the threshold into a vast, sunlit summer. It was a world devoid of darkness, a fresh canvas where life would paint their next chapters. They promised one another they would never forget. Heartbeats synchronized in relief and strength, they embraced tightly. And as they walked away, ready to seize the sun-drenched horizon ahead, they felt a glimmer of hope blossom within. The shadows had been real, but so had their resilience. With a newfound bond, horror faded as joy returned in waves, and laughter spilled into the air once more. But Megan's heart held a fragment of unease. Could darkness always return? Now, this is the moment to show your support. Subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories that might leave you breathless. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and help us spread these chilling tales far and wide. Flood the comments section with your explosive reactions and daring theories about the ending. Let us hear what you think, and don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Only true fans understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.